Welcome to our channel, Psyverge. What you are about to hear is not for the faint of heart. It's a descent into a darker dimension of philosophy, where human psychology, power, love, and illusion collide. This is the harsh truth about women, according to Friedrich Nietzsche. But before we go further, know this. Nietzsche was not concerned with politeness, nor with fitting into the moral fashions of society. He was not trying to comfort anyone. He was trying to understand, truthfully, even brutally, what lies beneath the masks of civilization. And in this quest, he said some things about women that most people today would rather ignore. Nietzsche didn't hate women. He didn't love them in the traditional sense either. What he did was peel away the sentimental lies that people, especially men, often tell themselves about women. In his view, love, beauty, and femininity weren't what they appeared to be. They were masks. Behind them, Nietzsche believed, was something rawer, more instinctual, more psychological, and ultimately, more dangerous. He once wrote, "You are going to women? Do not forget the whip." A line often misunderstood, even ridiculed. But Nietzsche wasn't advocating violence. He was making a symbolic point about power and deception. What he meant was, do not go to women unprepared. Do not approach them with illusions. Do not believe that their charm is free from calculation. Because if you do, you are stepping into a battlefield without armor. Nietzsche saw the sexes not as equals in identity, but as fundamentally different in drives and instincts. For him, women were not weak, far from it. They were, in fact, the masters of indirect power. Where men might dominate through force or grand vision, women, he believed, conquered through subtlety, seduction, and strategy. They operated psychologically through instincts refined over millennia of evolutionary survival. To Nietzsche, the idea of womanhood was not tied to some moral essence. It was tied to the will to power, a concept central to all of his philosophy. The will to power, he believed, was the basic force behind all human action, not goodness, not truth, but the raw desire to grow, to expand, to control one's environment, to shape reality according to one's own vision. And women, in Nietzsche's view, mastered the will to power in a uniquely covert way. They didn't wield it in open battle. They wielded it in the realm of appearance, charm, emotion, and sexual influence. Their battlefield was psychological. But here's the twist. Nietzsche wasn't necessarily condemning this. In fact, he thought that men were often the ones who fell into self-deception, especially in love. They projected ideals onto women, made them into goddesses, muses, eternal nurturers. Men, he said, often deluded themselves into thinking that women were angelic beings, the source of their redemption. In Nietzsche's eyes, this was not only false, it was dangerous. Because when men forget that women are also creatures of power, instinct, and ambition, just like men, they become vulnerable. They are no longer engaging with reality. They are loving a fantasy. This fantasy, Nietzsche believed, led to a psychological weakness in men. He called it romantic sickness, a kind of moral laziness dressed up as love. He believed that many men surrendered their strength, their will, even their destiny, for the illusion of feminine salvation. And in doing so, they ceased to be creators. They ceased to be men of becoming. They became slaves to ideals that never truly existed. There's a passage in Beyond Good and Evil where Nietzsche explains that women are not made to pursue truth the way men are, not because they are inferior, but because truth, to them, is less useful than appearance. Women, he claimed, are more interested in what works, in what secures love, survival, social success. Truth, in that cold philosophical sense, often threatens those things. And so, the feminine mind, in Nietzsche's analysis, evolved not for truth, but for adaptability, for aesthetics, for control over perception. This isn't misogyny. It's evolutionary psychology spoken through the voice of existential philosophy. Nietzsche saw women as artists of life, shapers of their environment through emotional intelligence, manipulation, and self-presentation. And in a world governed by power, those skills are not to be dismissed. He often criticized the movement to liberate women by making them like men. In The Gay Science, he warned that in trying to give women male-like rights, society might rob them of their own unique power. To Nietzsche, a woman's strength didn't lie in copying men, but in being something else entirely, something enigmatic, instinctual, elusive. Now, let's dive even deeper into Nietzsche's psychological view. He believed that all morality is rooted in psychological instincts. Love, he thought, was rarely pure. When a man loves a woman, he is not only giving, he is also claiming. He is asserting his will, his desire to possess, to define. And when a woman returns that love, she too is exercising her will, to capture, to inspire, to influence. Love, in this view, is a masked form of rivalry, a beautiful war. So when Nietzsche talks about women, he's not just talking about gender, he's talking about masks, about illusions, about how we dress up biological drives in romantic poetry and social conventions. And women, in his opinion, were particularly adept at playing this game. Not because they were deceptive in a moral sense, but because survival required it. In a world where physical strength was once the currency, women had to evolve a different kind of strength, psychological strength, influence, emotional warfare. He believed that while men fantasized about truth and eternal values, women were grounded in reality, often more cynical, more perceptive, more attuned to what actually works. This gave them a kind of power that was invisible to men who saw only surface beauty or idealized virtue. But Nietzsche also saw tragedy here. He believed that the modern world was destroying the mystery of woman. By reducing femininity to a social role or a checklist of rights, society was flattening the complexity of what womanhood had been. Something mythic, something untamed. He feared that women would lose their instinctual power by becoming too rational, too equal, too much like men. And in the process, both sexes would lose the vital tension that had driven human greatness. This is not a comfortable perspective. It's not easy to digest, but it's psychologically rich. Nietzsche wasn't giving a blueprint for gender relations. He was describing an existential dynamic, a push and pull between illusion and reality, power and vulnerability, appearance and essence. In the end, Nietzsche's harsh truth about women is really a harsh truth about humanity, about how we lie to ourselves in the name of love, about how we surrender our power for the illusion of security, about how beauty, charm, and love can be tools of domination just as much as weapons or money. And the most chilling part? Nietzsche believed that we don't want to wake up. We prefer the illusion. We want to be deceived. We want to believe that love is pure, that women are innocent, that beauty is truth. But underneath it all, he said, lies the will to power, the endless, restless drive to shape the world according to our desires, no matter how beautiful the mask. This isn't just about women. It's about the human condition, about how we hide from what we are, and how we build entire civilizations on those lies. So the next time you hear someone quote Nietzsche's infamous line about the whip, remember, it's not a call for violence. It's a warning, a challenge, an invitation to see through the mask, to realize that behind every romantic gesture, every delicate smile, every vow of love, there may lie something deeper, something ancient, something terrifying. And if you can face that truth without flinching, perhaps then you are ready for the real world. Thanks for watching.